I'm all in altcoins since May and they continue to crash. This altcoin bear market might continue to happen, and the question is, what should I do with my portfolio? What should you do when you're holding an altcoin portfolio? It's a roller coaster when you're investing into the altcoin markets, and if you're holding a portfolio yourself, the last few weeks might feel like they are never ending. I understand it's a risky strategy, and the more the markets continue to fall, the more you hear that on social media, and the more you will be hearing on social media that the altcoins will never come back. However, we all know crypto, and crypto sentiment can switch in a day, and it can be a bull market in just a few weeks. So the question is, what's my game plan going to be? I went all in on crypto altcoins in May 2024, and I've accumulated a lot of them on low valuations. So since that moment that I've been accumulating them, and of course I haven't been buying on the actual low, but we had the crash in April already, and since then not every altcoin has been reaching that exact number since that period in time. But regardless of that, they are getting back into very low regions, and some of them do hurt. But if we're looking at the altcoins, we can see that Ethereum is still up a lot. It's up more than 10%, and it reversed within one day, where Chainlink is currently seeing an upwards number as well, or a positive number, as we're still up close to 10% since my average buy-in into that particular altcoin. Some of them are doing terrible. For instance, Wormhole, which is currently down more than 40% since its actual high, and that does hurt to your portfolio, and I can clearly say it does hurt to mine as well. Does that mean that I'm changing anything at this point in time? Of course not. I have actually decided to put on more risk in one of my previous videos where I said I'm swapping some older altcoins and I'm inserting newer altcoins, which I think are going to do better when the markets are going to reverse. But actually since then they have been heavily underperforming, and that has been painful for my portfolio. Now, if I go back in time, when I was actually doing this with my portfolio, then I'm sure that everybody recalls, or the people who have been watching me from back in the day, know that I've been going into altcoins in the previous cycle as well. And I want to share a story when it comes to that, which is I actually invested the last amount of money that I had during that bear market, and the bear market continued until we had the halving taking place. Most of the altcoins were suffering after the halving. We had the first push, and from there the altcoins continued to fall for a little bit, and then the actual big surge started to happen. So with the last money that I technically had back in the day, I went into coins that I was able to stake, and they were called Matic, Phantom, and Veracity. Since I bought that actual position into Veracity, the first thing that took place was a correction of more than 40%. So instead of being able to make a return, I was actually losing money. So I was actually losing a valuation in Veracity, which was very painful because it's a super risky play to take. And I was considering selling my position and swapping it back towards Bitcoin, or just closing it down or quitting everything that I did in crypto. But then it started to turn around. It hit the level a few more times and it started to go back towards my break-even point. And I actually was making money through the ability of staking the actual asset. And all three of them started to wake up. One earlier than the other, but they started to wake up. And actually Veracity ran towards a peak of 95x after that moment in time. And actually, if you consider the actual return that was made since that period, you need to add on top of that the staking rewards that we were making, through which on average I was making more than 100x on that actual position. For Matic, for instance, I had a different mistake, which was I was positioned well into the actual position, but I decided to sell it mid-move, which was a 20x, but then it continued to surge another 10x, so, or like 5 or to 10x. So I know the rodeo, and I know what I have to do when it comes to the altcoin positions. And I think that ultimately, it is all about having balls of steel, and it is about understanding when the markets are going to move. And I've got this scenario with me again, which is the altcoin season table still works. Ethereum is the biggest mover. And yesterday I've talked about the fact that Ethereum is going to be the market mover again. And technically it's doing that already. But there's still the delay of the S1 documentation. And if you recall that particular S1 documentation, then you can also say, okay, so we've got Bitcoin moving first, then Ethereum, then the big caps will follow, and then the alt season starts to happen. And if you insert Solana for ETH, you can see that Solana moved, then the big caps moved, and now the altcoins on or the meme season on Solana is taking place, which is close to a peak. Ethereum moved already, but by providing the S1 documentation, the actual listing of the ETF, we get a confirmation of the fact that we are going to have Ethereum as a commodity that is going to be traded this way, which means that I think that the altcoin season goes towards the next level of the large caps. When you're looking at the charts with the altcoins, you can see that there are cycles taking place, right? So you can technically see that Ethereum against Bitcoin is having its first cycle, or has cycles here. Big surge, full retrace, another push, full retrace. So at this point in time, we can see we've got a new big push and we've got a correction. But based on this support that is happening here, you clearly want to see this area holding up as support again. And if that is not going to take place, that is where trouble starts to hit. Now, if we go back in time and go towards the previous cycles, we can show two examples of altcoin charts and cycles taking place. During 2020, Ethereum has been seeing several big pushes, 70%, and we had another push of around 90% taking place, another push of 100% taking place, but in between we have been seeing corrections of 40% for Ethereum. So, and another one of 30, which means that currently we've seen the first push and Ethereum is coming back down by 10%. We are looking at support here, and the fast this one is going to reverse back up, that is when the strength into altcoin starts to kick in. Because if you know this chart, then you also need to make sure that you understand how Chainlink has been behaving during the exact same period of time, which is we've had multiple corrections taking place of Chainlink during this period of more than 60%. Here we had one of 40%. But back in the period of the first start of the run, we also have been having 50% corrections. So it happens in cycles, and these cycles are usually taking place 2 to 3 months. And additionally, it has been that in the previous years, we have been seeing the fact that the second half of the year is the actual upwards momentum for the altcoins. So we're very close towards the end, and the Ethereum ETF is the actual trigger, because if Ethereum is going to be making the moves upwards again, the multiplier starts to kick in on the altcoins. I've swapped my strategy, which is I swapped from older coins to newer coins, which means that I do not believe that the older coins are bad. I've never said anything like that, and I think that most of the older coins are actually needed for the ecosystem to do well. But if you go back in time and if you say 2021, did NEO do well? Did ICX do well? Did VeChain do well? No, the coins that came out later in the cycle, Matic, Solana, Phantom, Avalanche, they actually provided the returns because they provided a solution for a problem that existed in the previous cycle, and it doesn't have any backholders. So now I think that to actually see those older coins move, it's going to take some time, and I think that the revenue is going to be made earlier in coins that are more interesting for hype purposes and also have been seeing some momentum already, which I think that the newer coins are going to provide, and some of them are actually really good when it comes to the sentiment and the hype that is included into the crypto ecosystem. So I swapped it. I'm probably going to be back moving towards other coins at a later point in time. Now, in terms of my strategy, which is the important part, what should you do and what am I doing with the altcoins at this point? I'm not gonna be selling anything. So I'm all in altcoins which means I don't sell any of it because I know the actual rodeo. I sold nothing in the previous cycle, which gave me the return. And if you are into an altcoin portfolio and you want to continue to hold, or you want to continue to have the profits at some point in this cycle, this is the period where I think you should be considering of holding that position. And if you have the ability to continue accumulating your position, then this is also the period in time where you need to show that you've got some balls of steel. If you do enjoy the content, subscribe down below. I'll see you again Sunday.